So today we're talking about pluralism, and pluralism makes people think of lots of different things. And I know for me, I think about just walking in and looking at everybody in this congregation. I can see a humanist, I can see a Christian, an atheist, a pagan, who I don't know what I'm a seeker. And so many different identities and backgrounds and from so many places. And we think about the richness that we heard in our joys and concerns this morning, that this human heart that is made of so many different parts, this beautiful congregation and beloved community that holds so much and so much difference, and yet holds it carefully. You know, we try and make sure that people's voices are honored, that when we do a song, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, we also have songs that are humanistic. We also have songs that come from Jewish traditions and pagan traditions, and so much thoughtfulness that goes into how we treat one another, how we love one another, and provide dignity to one another. In the proposed Article 2 changes to the UUA Article 2 that are coming up this summer at General Assembly, pluralism is one of the values listed. And the new wording is, we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant, which is a promise, to learn from each other. In our free and responsible search for truth and meaning, we embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. And I think about growing up in South Carolina, where usually it wasn't, what do you believe? It was, what church do you go to? Or, are you saved yet? And my favorite snarky response was usually that, well, I save at the local bank, but that wasn't very popular. Or the time I got cornered in my first job at a consumer agency, and I had a Darwin fish on my truck, and they said, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And they then quickly invited me to their Bible meeting after work. And we think about the pressure that people have to have a certain identity or have a certain belief. Are you married yet? Are you having children? Which man are you going to marry? All of these things, all of these pressures. And then when we have a new member class, people come into our congregation and said, well, I never knew a place like this existed. Where has this been all my life? Or I thought you use worship trees. That's what my Baptist friends told me. Or so many different ways of arriving at a place or a state of being where you can be held as who you are, who you love. So pluralism is not easy, In a space like this, you come on a Sunday, but think about where this came from. 12 people gathering around, 17 people, 20 people, and now 272 people. We have a democratic process. After this service, we're going to have an annual meeting. We will agree, we will disagree, but we will do it with respect and love. And we'll work together to pass a budget, to have a board, to get things done, and to create a space that is here now and here to come. I came to this congregation 13 years ago because I knew it would lovingly hold my, that it would hold my children. And my children could grow up here, and your children can grow up here. And no matter who they love or who they are. And yesterday we had a celebration of life for someone's parent, and he never joined here, but It was the former spouse of Lori Beasy, and we celebrated his life here. And Britton Beasy had grown up in this congregation, hadn't been here since the last funeral we held here for her parents, but she knew she could come here, be loved, be cared for, and that's why we do what we do. And so when we think of coexisting, you've seen the bumper sticker that people put on the back of their car. How many symbols are in that bumper sticker? I don't know. I like all the fun ones, especially the sci-fi ones that have like Doctor Who and, nerd stuff. But to coexist means that we have to recognize that there is difference in the world, that we aren't right. And that's hard, especially in these times, because things are so polarized. When people's beliefs threaten the safety of people we love or threaten democracy, but that word even, threaten, is in our 24-hour news cycle. It's a us versus them. And so when we think about our language of pluralism, can we really respect each other's differences? Can we create a wide circle? And so we practice that here. We think about, I don't always understand why people believe what they believe, but I like to listen and find out, why do you believe that? And ask curious questions instead of saying, well, that's dumb. Because that might be what comes into some people's heads, but when somebody has a statement and you might not agree with it, what would happen if you asked a question? Like, well, tell me more about that. Where did that come from? And as a Unitarian Universalist minister, I went to seminary at a Methodist seminary. I could have gone to a UU school, possibly, but there were over 43 denominations. There were students from African and Asian countries. I got to take a class from a former Tibetan monk. And in all of this, I feel like I learned to live in the world. And that's what all of us do. Wherever we are, whatever our identities, we go out into the world and we represent who we are. And I think, when I think of what UU stands for, people tell me, I always know that we can count on UU showing up. I know that when we have a vigil, you'll be there, Reverend Julie. Your folks will be there. I know that if we ask you to hold something in your space, as long as there's enough room, we've had people really packed in here for so many things, but we know that you'll show up. And so a place that holds that much love and that much plurality is so important in this world. And so coexistence boils down to how comfortable a person is with difference. When confronted with religious differences, you might say, my religion is the only correct religion, and all other religions are false. That's not going to work so well. Or you might say, my religion has some thoughts, and you have some thoughts. Where do they meet? And so we think about the different sources, the different ideas. Stephen Prothora wrote a book, and it was saying that God is not one. Because a lot of times people say, oh, well, we just all kind of believe the same thing, right? It's all the same source. But thinking about, it's kind of like saying color doesn't matter. It's like, or saying, I don't see your blackness, or I don't see your identity. Our differences are important. It is what makes our true colors, our rainbow. So when I say, in this congregation, I look out and I see our plurality, that is our strength. That is the strength, I believe, of our country, is our differences of opinion, the fact that we have Christians and Baha'i and Muslims and Jews, and even in this Chippewa Valley. How diverse are we in this little Midwestern college town? It's why I have been drawn to Jonah over the years, joining our neighbors, advancing hope, because I get to meet Catholics that I can go do stuff with, instead of thinking about, well, I don't believe in God the Father. Who cares? I believe in feeding the homeless. I believe in finding fair housing. I believe in the environment. And we can do that together. And of course, I care about my beliefs, and I care about their beliefs, and we're going to disagree on some things. But what can we do together? And I think that is the power of thinking about plurality. And I think that's also the hope of our country and of our world, is thinking about what we have in common, not losing our voice or our democratic process or voting, please vote, but understanding that if we can figure out a way to talk to one another, to even when people are being hateful, instead of yelling back, when I'm at General Assembly, we sing them down. We sing them down. We say, love will guide us. They're saying nasty slurs about all sorts of things, and we'll just sing louder, love will guide us. We get louder and louder and smile more and more. And that, I believe, is how plurality wins, and how we don't let conservatism or fundamentalism or people who use religion like a blunt weapon in a world where we need love. We need places that will hold us in our hardest times, in our joyful times. I want to bless a whole bunch of babies and recognize that they're original blessings. I want to do all kinds of marriages. And yesterday when I did a memorial, there were folks attending from, I knew some were Catholic, and some of the kids were looking at me like, that's a woman minister. What is happening here? But it was great. It was great. That was plurality, right? And that was love, showing up, being there. So thank you for letting this be a place of welcome. And it's hard work. I often get the question, how do you have all those kinds of differences in your congregation and get along? And my answer is very carefully, with love and respect. Because love is the spirit of this church, and it bridges our differences. And ultimately, by honoring the sanctity in one another, we see our true colors, and we're a rainbow, and we're beautiful. Thank you.